What's going on, everybody? I'm here with another video. Yes, I'm doing a double header style just because there's so much good news that's going on with the UFC, that's going on with mixed martial arts as a whole. We're in April. The UFC's rolling, Bellator's rolling, the PFL's rolling. All these big mixed martial arts organizations are finally back in action all at the same time, and I can't wait. Obviously, there's a lot of good things that is going on all around the MMA world, but other breaking news that I really want to talk about. Nate Diaz is coming back, Mr. 209, Mr. Stockton. He's finally come back to the UFC ever since his hiatus. He hasn't fought since 2019, since he created the BMF belt and defended it. Well, he kind of fought for it basically, even though he's the one who basically created it. He came up with the idea, he came up with the thought, he came into a realization, and that realization became a reality. He fought for that BMF belt against Jorge Masvidal. He lost because he had a huge cut on top of his eyes, basically right here in this area. And the doctors in New York City, they'll stop any fight if you have a little cut on your cheek or on your forehead or anything. That's how much I kind of dislike having fights go down in the state of New York, because the New York State Athletic Commission is the worst commission in the United States of America. Should have had that fight in Vegas. If we would have had that fight in Vegas, that fight would have went the full 5 rounds or until someone got finished. But Nate Diaz is coming back. He's got a 20-12 record with the UFC, but he is a fan favorite. He's basically fought the who's who in the welterweight division as well as the lightweight division as well. He fought Anthony Pettis. He fought Roy McDonald. He fought Conor McGregor. He fought RDA, Rafael Dos Anjos. He's basically fought everybody from now. Michael Johnson. The list goes on and on and on because that's how much of a good fighter he is. He fights the best of the best. He doesn't take an easy pass for anything. The guy loves to fight. The guy likes to make money. The guy loves to entertain. He's going to be coming back here and fighting the most unlikeliest of guys. I never would have saw this coming to begin with. He's going to be fighting Leon Edwards. He is 18-3 in his mixed martial arts career. He is the Jamaican British. So obviously he was born in Jamaica, but decided that he wanted to relocate to England at a very early age. So obviously, if there's one thing about these Jamaican British fighters is that they don't take a backseat to anyone either. They love to fight, and they are all good fighters, and they always come to scrap no matter what. Obviously, Leon Edwards was looking very, very good a couple weeks ago against Bilal Muhammad until he kind of, he had his whole entire finger basically in Bilal Muhammad's eyes, and the fight had to be stopped. It was deemed a no contest. But before that fight, Leon Edwards had won 9 straight. The last person he lost to was a champion in the welterweight division, Kamaru Usman. So obviously this is a fight that a lot of people are going to like, even though Leon Edwards isn't a fan favorite, even though he doesn't really put a lot of butts into the seats. Nate Diaz is going to be making up for a lot of that slack, and this is going to be a co-main event, and this is historic, guys. Very, very historic. This is the first 5-round co-main event that won't be for a title in the history of the UFC. The UFC has not done this for anybody. And there have been some great fighters fighting on co-main event slots that weren't for titles. Obviously, I can't really name these fighters, but there's been many of them that have been absolutely amazing. But none of them were for 5 rounds. They were always for 3 rounds. There were a couple fights. If there was one fight that I really wanted that could have been for 5 rounds, it would have been that Cowboy Cerrone versus Robbie Lawler fight. It was absolutely electric. It was absolutely crazy for the 15 minutes that it lasted for. So obviously that's one fight that comes out on top of my head that I wish was 5 rounds instead of 3, but it's not. But this fight, like I said, it's going to be the co-headliner for UFC 262 going down to May 15th in Houston, Texas. You see how I said that? Houston, Texas. Because Houston, Texas has some horrible judges, and I don't want this fight to go down to the wire, go down to a decision, and have these judges screw over a bunch of fighters, because this card is absolutely stacked to the gills, man. And I can't go over all the fights, but I will go over the majority of them that really interest me as this UFC 262 card gets nearer and nearer and nearer. Obviously, we just got into the month of April, so we got the whole entire month plus a couple weeks until UFC 262. But UFC 261 will be this month and is also another very stacked card. But UFC 262 is shaping up to be a card to remember with all these amazing fights, with all these amazing fighters, with a lot of talent, and with the majority of the fans that are going to be there. If I were the UFC, stop having these fights in arenas. Let's start having these fights in stadiums that have obviously the closed in stadiums that actually have the roofs that open in and close up. So obviously you can be able to fit more fans in there. And the only time that the UFC really had any fights go down in stadiums, I believe one was in Montreal, Canada, I believe, and then the other one was in Melbourne, Australia, in Marvel Stadium. So obviously those are the only two UFC cards I believe were actually inside of stadiums that packed in a lot of fans, more than 60,000 I believe in each one. Why can't we do that here in the United States? I have no idea. There's obviously the new Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, Nevada. Why not try that? There's AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. Why not try that? There's also the SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles, California. Why not try that? There's so many different stadiums across the United States of America that we can be able to use, especially the Hard Rock Stadium in Miami, Florida, where there's been so many fights that happened in that stadium in the past. Why not have a UFC event go down there to fit in as many fans as possible and to fill in the void, to fill in all the money that was lost in 2020 that the UFC is still trying to make up till this day. So obviously there's a lot of good things that are happening with the UFC, but I'd really like to see UFC fights happen in stadiums in the future to house more fans, to make more money, to be able to have a larger live gate. So obviously this fight is going down for May 15th, and it is a very exciting one. Both these guys are well-rounded MMA fighters. Both these guys don't really have a sole specialty. They're not one-trick ponies. They're going to go in there, they're going to scrap, and they're going to try to get the finish no matter what. Nate Diaz has been training ever since 2020. His brother Nick Diaz wants to make a comeback into the UFC. He's been training with his brother Nick. He's been training with their whole entire team. They're trying to get back in there. And Nate Diaz is in peak form. His physical shape is great right now. He's shredded, and he's ready to fight. He's in fight shape. He's in physical shape. He wants to get in there, and he wants to tear someone's head off. He wants to throw up the middle finger, scream at the 209 at them. He wants to do all of this. And you got Leon Edwards. And the main reason why Leon Edwards is taking this fight against someone who's not even ranked in the welterweight division, someone such as him who is risking his spot in the top 5 against someone who's not even ranked, it's because of the name. It's because of the name that comes with Nate Diaz. The Nate Diaz fight is as big as a Conor McGregor fight. The seats that Nate Diaz can be able to fill in can be as much as 2 stadiums, because that's how many fans around the world that Nate Diaz has. Nate Diaz is as popular as Conor McGregor. He has a lot of notoriety to his name, a lot of popularity, and people from around the world love to see him fight. They love to see the blood that always splashes off of his face because of all the scar tissue that it has that makes it easy to cut him up. They love all that, man. They love Nate Diaz. He is a warrior. He loves to fall on his shield until his lights are out. He's willing to die inside of that octagon. And like I said with these Jamaican British fighters, they're all cut from the same cloth as well. They're willing to die inside that octagon. They're willing to fight until their last breath. This is going to be freaking the gladiators, man. Roman gladiators fighting to the death, because Leon Edwards is no slouch. He's got a lot of power. I say he has more power than Nate Diaz, but Nate Diaz has the better boxing ability. I think we all know that. When it comes to the speed, you also got to give it to Leon Edwards as well, because he displayed a lot of it against Belal Muhammad. When it comes to the jiu-jitsu, that's a no-brainer. That's all Nate Diaz. When he has you in a submission, you're basically done. When he has you in submission, you're going to tap out immediately, because when he has you in his... When he has you, he basically has you as tight as an anaconda. That's how deep his chokes usually are. And he's very slick and he's very fluid with them when he's on the ground. If this fight gets a little bit ugly, if it's on against the fence, against the cage, then you can definitely rely on Nate Diaz bringing a little bit of that dirty boxing with him, with the elbows, with the fists. His Muay Thai is very good. But like I said, when it comes to the speed and the strength and the power, you got to give that to Leon Edwards. The guy is big for the welterweight division. The guy has been there with a bunch of animals, but he hasn't been in there with Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz has more experience inside the octagon than Leon Edwards does. Nate Diaz has been in this MMA game for far longer than Leon Edwards has. So obviously, when it comes to both these individuals, the experience is going to be on Nate Diaz's side. When it comes to the quality of opponents that both these fighters have fought, you gotta give it to Nate Diaz as well. He's been fighting the best of the best of the best for a very, very long time. I know Leon Edwards has beaten these guys. He beat Gunnar Nelson. He beat RDA. He beat Ty. Actually, no, he was supposed to fight Tyron Woodley, but he never got that fight. He beat Damian Maia, I believe. He's beaten a lot of these other guys that are basically worn down and really not in their primes anymore. So obviously, Leon Edwards does have a good list on his resume, but it's not as good as Nate Diaz. And when it comes to the fighter IQ as well, I'm gonna put it out there to Leon Edwards because Leon Edwards is a very smart individual. He understands how the octagon works. He understands that when he's in basically kill mode, when he's in a flow state, he needs to do things the right way. When it comes to Nate Diaz, he's just a grinder. That's what I think of when I think about Nate Diaz. He's a grinder. He tries to go in there to finish fights, and he's also a living, breathing sponge. He reminds me of Vicente Luque. And Vicente Luque was asking for this Diaz fight many, many, many times. I'm very sad. I'm distraught that this fight between Vicente Luque and Nate Diaz isn't going down, because if it did go down, it would have been a slobber knocker all the way to the 5th round. I probably would have wanted a 6th round to be added in there because of those two individuals and their fighting styles. Nate Diaz is another fighter that has that Mexican style to him. He likes to, like I said, he's a living, breathing sponge. He likes to absorb a lot of damage and give it right back to you. And I believe that's what this fight is going to be. And if I can't give a direct winner to this fight just yet, I'm going to have to make another video when it comes to this. I just wanted to preview a little bit of it and see who has the certain advantages in each category. Just to let you guys know that this is going to be a very exciting fight, and I believe it will go down the 5 rounds. Obviously, even though Nate Diaz has been in very good shape, I don't think he's going to go in there and try to get a finish. He hasn't gotten a finish in a very, very long time. The last time he finished someone was Conor McGregor, and that was in the 2nd round of their first fight via rear naked choke. So obviously there is a lot to be told for this fight. Let's see how it marinates, because we're still very far away, and Nate is a very complicated person when it comes to negotiating with, but I do believe in my heart that he wants to get back in there and fight as soon as possible. He wants to get a W, and he wants to shock the world. So obviously, I appreciate you guys watching this video yet again. Like I said, it's my 2nd one in the day. I just wanted to do a doubleheader because there's a lot going on in the MMA world, and I absolutely love it. Like I said, UFC, Bellator, the PFL are coming back, and the PFL are making some gigantic waves, and I believe they will surpass Bellator for that 2nd spot in the very, very near future, depending on all the different moves that they continue to make. I believe they earn about $65 million. I have no idea how, but that's a lot of money. Not as much as the UFC, because the UFC is worth a couple $1 billion, but we'll see what happens in the future. Nate Diaz, Leon Edwards, UFC 262 from the Honda Center in Houston, Texas, May 15th. Let's go.